I used to think I had one of those lives people quietly envied without ever saying it out loud. Not flashy, not dramatic, just steady in a way that made you believe you were doing something right in the world. I had a good job in logistics management for a mid-sized distribution company outside Columbus. Nothing glamorous, but enough to keep us comfortable. My wife Rachel worked in marketing for a healthcare company downtown. We weren't rich, but we had the kind of life where bills got paid on time, vacations happened once or twice a year, and Sunday mornings meant coffee on the couch while half watching whatever show we never fully committed to. We had been married just over 6 years. People used to call us solid, like we were some kind of dependable unit. Rachel had this calm presence that made people trust her immediately. She was the kind of woman who remembered birthdays, asked follow-up questions weeks later about things you casually mentioned, and somehow always looked put together, even on days she said she felt like a mess. I loved that about her. I used to think that was what stability felt like, being next to someone who made life feel organized. If I'm being honest, I probably leaned on that too much. I worked long hours, justified it as providing, and told myself that was enough. Rachel never complained, at least not directly. If anything, she seemed understanding, even supportive. She'd pack me lunch sometimes when I didn't have time, leave little notes in my bag, small things that made me feel like I was doing everything right. We lived in a quiet suburban neighborhood just outside the city, the kind of place where people wave when they take out the trash, and everyone knows which lawns are slightly too long. Our house wasn't big, but it was ours. 2 bedrooms, a small backyard, and a kitchen Rachel insisted on remodeling even though I thought the old one was fine. She had taste like that, always wanting to make things a little better, a little more polished. Looking back, I think that was part of what blinded me. Everything looked improved, curated, controlled. Even us. There were no obvious cracks, not at first. That's the thing people don't understand about betrayal. It doesn't always arrive like a storm. Sometimes it feels like a slow adjustment in lighting you don't notice until the room looks completely different. The first weird moment didn't even feel important at the time. Rachel started staying late at work more often. Not dramatically late, just enough that dinner plans became flexible instead of fixed. She'd text me around 6 or 7 saying things were crazy busy or last-minute meetings, and I never questioned it. Marketing jobs were like that, I assumed. Deadlines, campaigns, all of it. I started eating alone more often. I'd heat something up, sit at the kitchen island, scroll my phone while the house stayed too quiet. Sometimes she'd come home after I was already in bed.
I'd feel her slip under the covers, smell her shampoo, and hear a tired sigh. She always said she didn't want to wake me. I'd mumble something half asleep and go right back under. We still functioned like a couple. We still kissed goodbye in the morning, still talked about groceries and weekend plans. Nothing was missing in an obvious way. That's what made it easy to ignore the small discomfort building in the background. The shift started around the same time she got more protective of her phone. It wasn't dramatic, just subtle. She'd flip it face down when I walked into a room, take it with her even when she went to shower. Once I walked into the kitchen and saw her stop mid-message, glance up, and lock the screen faster than she needed to. When I joked about it, she laughed and said work had gotten insane confidential. I let it go. I wish I could say I had some instincts screaming at me back then, but I didn't. If anything, I felt a little guilty for even noticing, like suspicion itself was a failure on my part. Then came the message. It was a Tuesday night. I remember because I was watching a game I barely cared about, just background noise while I answered emails on my laptop. Rachel was supposedly at a late team dinner. She had texted me around 6, saying she'd be home around 10-ish. My phone buzzed with an unknown number. At first, I almost ignored it. Spam was constant, but something made me open it anyway. The message was short. You don't know me, but I think you deserve to. Then there were photos. I still remember the way my stomach dropped before my brain even processed what I was seeing. It wasn't immediate understanding. It was confusion first, like my mind refused to connect the dots. Rachel, my wife, she was in all of them. The photos looked like they were taken outside a restaurant downtown, somewhere upscale with warm lighting and glass windows. In one image, she was laughing, head tilted slightly back, holding a wine glass. In another, she was standing close to a man I didn't recognize, his hand resting on the small of her back like it belonged there. In a third, they were sitting too close in a booth, leaning in toward each other like the rest of the world didn't exist. I remember zooming in, like that would change what I was seeing, like detail would somehow correct the meaning. Her smile was unmistakable. I knew that expression. I had seen it 1,000 times. It wasn't a professional smile. It wasn't something you did for coworkers or clients. It was personal. My hands started to feel cold. I sat there for a long time just staring, not moving, not thinking in a straight line. The game on the TV kept going, the crowd noise rising and falling like nothing in my life had just split open. Another message came in. I'm not trying to hurt you. I just couldn't keep watching this without saying something. Then another photo. This one hit harder than the rest. Rachel and the man walking out of the restaurant together.
His arm around her shoulder, her hand resting lightly on his chest like it was the most natural thing in the world. I don't know how long I sat there. Minutes, maybe longer. The house suddenly felt unfamiliar, like I was in someone else's life and had been mistaken for the occupant. I tried calling the number. It went straight to voicemail. I texted back, asking who they were, what this was, where they got the photos. No response. I tried again. Nothing. That's when the rational part of my brain started catching up, trying to build alternative explanations. Maybe it was old photos. Maybe it was a misunderstanding. Maybe this was some kind of joke, a scam, someone trying to mess with me for reasons I couldn't understand. But none of it explained the feeling in my chest, that deep, heavy certainty I didn't want to name yet. I heard the garage door open around 10:30. Rachel was home. I remember standing up without realizing I had decided to move. My phone was still in my hand, the photos still open. My heart was beating too hard, too loud, like it was trying to escape. I could hear her keys, her footsteps in the hallway, the familiar sound of her dropping her bag on the counter. "Hey," she called out casually, "you still up?" And in that moment, I made a decision I didn't fully understand yet. I didn't confront her. Not immediately. Something about the normality of her voice, the ease of it, made everything feel even more unreal. Like I needed to be sure before I shattered whatever version of reality was still holding together. I locked my phone screen and slid it into my pocket. "Yeah," I said, my voice sounding normal even though I felt anything but. Just couldn't sleep. She walked into the kitchen then, smiling like nothing in the world was wrong. Her hair was slightly messy in that effortless way I used to find attractive. She leaned in and kissed my cheek, lingering just a second longer than usual. "You're acting weird," she said lightly, opening the fridge. "Everything okay?" I looked at her, really looked at her, trying to match the woman in front of me with the woman in the photos on my phone. And for the first time in 6 years, I didn't know which one was real. I didn't sleep that night, not really. I stayed in bed next to Rachel, listening to her breathing like it had suddenly become something I didn't recognize. It was steady, calm, almost comforting if I let myself drift into old habits. But I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those photos again. Her smile, the way she leaned into him like it was effortless, like I wasn't part of the equation at all. At some point around 3 a.m., I got up and went to the kitchen under the excuse of water I didn't even want. I stood there in the dark, holding the glass without drinking, replaying the message over and over in my head. "You don't know me, but I think you deserve to." That line kept sticking like a splinter. Not the accusation, not even the photos. That sentence.
Like whoever sent it wasn't just exposing something, but choosing me specifically to receive it. That thought made my stomach tighten in a way I couldn't explain. I checked a number again. Still nothing. No profile picture, no name, just a blank, anonymous contact, like it had been created solely for that moment. When I finally went back to bed, Rachel shifted slightly toward me, like she always did in her sleep. Her hand ended up resting close to mine. I didn't move away, but I didn't reach back either. The next morning felt wrong, in a quiet, almost insulting way. Sunlight came through the blinds the same way it always did. The coffee maker still clicked and hissed like usual. Rachel moved around the kitchen, humming under her breath while she made breakfast, asking me if I wanted eggs or just toast, like nothing had changed in the world overnight. I studied her face when she wasn't looking at me, trying to find something, a crack, a hesitation, anything that matched the woman in the photos. But she looked normal, worse than normal, comfortable. At one point, she kissed my cheek again before leaving for work and said, "Don't work too hard today," like she hadn't possibly just detonated my entire understanding of our marriage less than 12 hours earlier. After she left, I sat in the silence she left behind and tried to make sense of what I knew versus what I felt. The photos were real. I wasn't doubting that anymore. They had too much detail, too much context. The lighting, the angles, The way people moved when they didn't know they were being watched. You can't fake that kind of casual intimacy easily. But the bigger question was worse. If it was real, then who was he? And if it was real, how long had it been going on? I went through the motions of my day at work like I was watching someone else do it. Answering emails, sitting in meetings, nodding at conversations I didn't absorb. Every few minutes, my phone felt like it was burning in my pocket, like it had become something dangerous just by existing. Around noon, I finally broke and opened the photos again. I studied them more carefully this time, zoomed in on details I had ignored before. The restaurant signage reflected in the window, the way the man was dressed. Dark jacket, clean haircut, expensive watch. Not flashy rich, but the kind of put together that usually meant he didn't worry about money. And Rachel, she looked different in a way I couldn't immediately define. Not physically, she was still my wife, but there was a looseness in her body language I wasn't used to seeing. Like she wasn't performing anything, like she didn't need to think about how she appeared. That realization made something twist inside me, because around me, Rachel was always aware. Even at home, there was a kind of subtle presentation. Not fake, just intentional. The woman in those photos wasn't performing anything at all, which meant she didn't feel the need to.
Which meant she wasn't with me when she felt like that. By mid-afternoon, I made a decision I didn't fully think through. I texted her, "What's your schedule like tonight?" She replied almost immediately, "Work dinner again. Sorry, another late one. I'll try to be home before 10. Same pattern, same timing, same vague explanation. I stared at the message for a long time before replying. Okay. That was it. Just okay. But inside, something had already shifted from confusion into something sharper, suspicion, that now had structure. That night, I didn't stay home. I told her I had a late meeting too. I didn't even feel guilty about the lie, which should have scared me more than it did. Instead, I felt focused, like I was finally doing something instead of just absorbing damage. I left the house around the same time she did, watched her car pull out of the driveway from a distance, then waited 10 minutes before following. I wasn't even sure what I expected to happen. Part of me thought I might just be wrong, that I'd follow her to some harmless corporate dinner, watch her sit with coworkers, feel like an idiot, and go home with nothing but embarrassment. But that didn't happen. She didn't go downtown. She drove in the opposite direction, away from the city, toward an area I only vaguely knew. Not suburban like ours, but older neighborhoods with converted warehouses and small pockets of nightlife, places where people didn't go for work dinners unless something else was happening. I kept a few cars behind, heart hammering in a steady, sick rhythm. Every red light felt like it lasted too long. Every turn felt like it might be the one that made me lose her. Eventually, she pulled into a parking lot behind a row of brick buildings. Dim lighting, half-full spaces, a quiet hum of people moving in and out of bars and restaurants. She got out of her car alone. That detail hit me harder than I expected. Alone didn't match the story she had told me, not even slightly. I parked farther back and watched her walk. She didn't hesitate. She didn't look around nervously. She looked like someone who had done this before, many times. I stayed in the car for a moment, trying to decide what I was actually going to do next. Follow her inside, confront her, sit there like an idiot until she came back out? My phone buzzed again before I could move. Unknown number. Another message. "You're there, aren't you?" My blood went cold. I didn't respond. A second message came in almost immediately. "Don't go inside yet. Just watch." My grip tightened around the phone. I looked around the parking lot, half expecting to see someone watching me. But there was nothing obvious. Just normal city noise. Distant voices, a couple walking toward a bar entrance, a car pulling out slowly. I typed back, "Who are you?" No response. I looked up again, and Rachel was gone, inside one of the buildings. I sat there for a long time, debating everything at once. My mind kept trying to catch up to itself, building and collapsing theories faster than I could hold on to them. Was this person stalking her? Was this some kind of setup? Or was this person guiding me towards something I wasn't ready to see? I finally got out of the car. The air outside felt heavier than it should have. I walked toward the building slowly, every step feeling like it mattered more than it should have. There was a narrow hallway leading inside, dim lights overhead, music bleeding faintly through walls. I stopped just before the entrance and looked down the corridor, and that's when I saw her, Rachel,
standing close to him again, the same man from the photos. This time it wasn't a picture. It was real, live, unfiltered. They weren't kissing, not yet, but they were close enough that there was no pretending this was casual. His hand was at her waist again, like it belonged there naturally. She was smiling at something he said, head tilted slightly the same way I had seen in the photos. And in that moment, everything I had been holding together inside me finally stopped pretending it could hold. Because whatever I had been telling myself about misunderstanding or timing or context didn't survive what I was looking at right now. This wasn't confusion anymore. This was confirmation, and I still didn't know who the stranger was or how he knew exactly where I would be standing. I stood there in that dim hallway longer than I should have, just watching them, like my body had forgotten how to decide what to do next. People kept walking past me, brushing shoulders, laughing, ordering drinks somewhere deeper inside. And I felt completely separated from all of it, like I was behind glass, like none of those normal lives were supposed to include me anymore. Rachel tilted her head again the same way she did in the photos. That small, familiar gesture hit harder than anything else. It wasn't just that she was with him. It was that she looked like herself in a way I hadn't been included in for a long time without even realizing it. The man leaned in and said something to her. She smiled, a real smile, not the polite kind she used with coworkers, not the tired one she gave me sometimes at home, but something looser, easier, like gravity didn't weigh on her the same way when she was with him. My phone buzzed again. I already knew it was him before I even looked at it. Don't rush it. That was all it said. I looked around again, scanning the entrance, the hallway, the people moving in and out. There was no obvious source, no one watching me directly, and yet it felt like whoever this was wasn't far, like they were in the same building, maybe even close enough to see me hesitate. I typed back without thinking. Why are you doing this? A pause. Then, because you've been living in a version of your life that isn't real. My throat tightened at that, not because it was dramatic, but because it felt calm, controlled. Like whoever was on the other end wasn't emotional about it at all. That bothered me more than anything. I took a step forward into the building. The noise shifted immediately. Music louder now, low bass vibrating through the walls. Warm lighting replaced the dim hallway glow. It was one of those places trying hard to feel effortless, like exposed brick and Edison bulbs automatically made things meaningful. I saw Rachel again, almost instantly, through a gap between people. Still with him. They were moving now, heading deeper inside. I followed at a distance, keeping my head down just enough to not look obvious. My heart felt like it was trapped in a constant impact, like it had stopped trying to keep rhythm and was just reacting to everything all at once. They stopped near a booth in the back corner, not fully private, but tucked away enough that casual glances wouldn't linger. The kind of spot people pick when they don't expect to be interrupted. I stayed far enough back that I couldn't hear them, just close enough to see everything. Rachel sat first. He sat beside her instead of across from her, which already felt like a choice that meant something. Their bodies angled toward each other without hesitation, like they'd done this enough times that positioning didn't require thought anymore. I watched her laugh again, and that was the moment something in me stopped trying to soften what I was seeing, because there was no confusion left in her face, no tension, no double life hiding behind stress or explanation, just ease. My phone buzzed again. Still watching? I didn't respond this time. Instead, I looked harder at the man, trying to understand what I was missing. He wasn't obviously flashy, but there was something about him that made sense in a way I didn't like. Confidence without performance. The kind of posture people develop when they don't question whether they belong where they are. Rachel leaned closer to him as he spoke. Not dramatically, just enough that it didn't look accidental. I felt something shift inside my chest again, but it wasn't just anger yet. It was something messier, a mix of disbelief and humiliation I couldn't fully separate. I took another step forward, and that's when I saw something that made everything inside me pause. His phone. It was face up on the table for a second when he adjusted it, and I saw my own number, or at least what I thought was my number. I froze. That didn't make sense at first. My brain rejected it immediately. There was no reason for him to have my contact. No reason at all. Unless... My phone buzzed again at the exact same time. Look at him closely. I stared harder, trying to reconcile what I was seeing. Rachel and him were talking again, her hand lightly touching his wrist now. Casual. Familiar. And then I noticed something else. His eyes. They weren't scanning the room like a stranger would. They flicked once in my direction. Not long, not obvious. Just enough. Enough to confirm something. He knew I was there. My stomach dropped. I stepped back instinctively, ducking behind a support column near the edge of the room. My breathing felt too loud, too exposed. I tried to slow it down, but my body wasn't listening anymore. Another message came in. You followed her exactly like I expected. My hands tightened around my phone. Who the hell are you? This time, there was a delay before the response, long enough that I started to feel something else creeping in under the confusion. Not fear exactly, recognition of manipulation. Then, someone who knows what your wife does when you're not around. I looked back toward the booth. Rachel was still there, still smiling, still completely unaware of the internal collapse happening 10 feet away from her. But the man was different now. He wasn't just talking to her anymore. He was subtly positioned so he could see the room better. Not hiding, not panicking, watching, waiting. That's when it hit me that this wasn't random. This wasn't some anonymous stranger exposing a secret out of guilt or morality or accident. This was structured, intentional, timed. My phone buzzed again. You're going to want to leave soon. I almost laughed at that, but it came out as nothing. Just air. I typed, if you're here, show yourself. A pause again. Then, you already saw me. My eyes scanned the room again. Every face felt suspect now. Every movement felt like it could be connected. Then I saw it. The man stood up from the booth. Rachel stayed seated for a second, looking up at him like he had said something to end the moment. He leaned down slightly, said something close to her ear, and she nodded. Then he turned and walked directly toward the hallway I had just come from. Not away from me, toward me. My pulse spiked instantly. I stepped back deeper into the shadow of the column, watching him move through the crowd with complete confidence. No hesitation, no scanning. He knew exactly where he was going. My phone buzzed again. Don't move. My grip tightened so hard my fingers started to ache. He was closer now, passing tables, brushing past people without breaking stride, and every step he took felt like it was aimed at me specifically. I realized something then that made my stomach turn. Rachel wasn't the only one being watched. I was part of this too, and I still didn't understand what role I was supposed to be playing. The man reached the edge of the hallway, the same hallway I had followed them through. He stopped, just for a second, and looked directly at me. No confusion, no searching. Straight at me, like I was exactly where he expected me to be. My phone buzzed one last time. Now we can talk. And I knew, standing there in that half-shadowed corner, that whatever truth I thought I was chasing had just shifted into something I wasn't prepared to name yet. Not even close. He stopped at the edge of the hallway like he already knew I wouldn't run. That was the first thing that hit me. Not fear, not confusion.
Just that unsettling certainty that I wasn't reacting in real time anymore. I was reacting inside something that had already been arranged. People kept moving behind him, music still pulsing from the bar, glasses clinking, laughter spilling out in fragments. Normal life continued like a backdrop that had nothing to do with what was happening between the two of us. He didn't raise his hands, didn't act surprised, didn't look like someone caught doing something wrong. He just looked at me like we were finally on schedule. "You can stop hiding," he said. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried over the noise anyway. My throat went dry instantly. I tried to speak and nothing came out at first. That annoyed me more than anything else, like my body was refusing to cooperate when I needed it most. "You've been following her," I finally said, though it came out weaker than I wanted. He gave a small nod, like I'd confirmed something obvious. "Yeah," he said, "you have to." That word landed wrong. "To." Like there was a shared participation in this I hadn't agreed to. I stepped forward into the hallway light, just enough to see him clearly now, close enough that I could read his expression without guessing. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't smug in the way I expected someone like him to be. He just looked tired, focused, like this had taken a long time to get to this exact point. Behind him, I could still see Rachel at the booth. She was looking around now, her smile fading slightly as she realized he wasn't coming back immediately. Her eyes scanned the room in that casual way people do when they're waiting and pretending they're not waiting. She hadn't seen me yet. That mattered more than I wanted it to. "Who are you?" I asked again, slower this time.
He tilted his head slightly. "You already saw me," he said. My mind snapped back to the booth, the way he sat next to her, the ease between them, the hand at her waist, the familiarity that didn't belong in a first-time interaction. "You're the guy," I said, the words catching as they formed. "In the photos." He nodded again. "I'm the guy she's been seeing," he said, like he was correcting a misunderstanding in a meeting rather than dismantling my marriage in a hallway. My chest tightened so hard it almost felt physical, like something inside me was bracing for impact that kept not fully arriving. "But the messages," I said. "The number. You were texting me." A pause. Then he pulled his phone out slowly, like he didn't want to escalate anything. He tapped a few times and turned the screen slightly toward me. It was the same number, same thread, same messages. My stomach dropped again, but deeper this time, because I realized I had been assuming something I shouldn't have. "You think I'm stalking you," he said. Not a question, just a continuation. "I'm not." "Then what is this?" I snapped, my voice finally breaking through whatever control I was trying to maintain.
"You're showing me my wife with you, then telling me to follow her, then acting like what? Like I'm part of your plan?" He didn't react to the anger. "Not really. I didn't tell you to follow her," he said calmly. "I told you to watch. That's the same thing." "No," he said, "it isn't." Behind him, Rachel stood up from the booth now. I saw her fully this time, shifting slightly like she was deciding whether to go after him or stay put. Her eyes moved across the room again, slower this time, and then they landed. On me. It wasn't immediate recognition at first. It was confusion, a pause in her expression like her brain was trying to place why I was there, why I was standing in a hallway instead of at home like I was supposed to be. Then it hit her. Her face changed. Not dramatically. Not like in movies. It was smaller than that. A tightening around her eyes, a sudden stillness in her shoulders. She took one step forward. "No," she mouthed. I couldn't hear her over the noise, but I didn't need to. The man glanced back at her briefly, then returned his attention to me. "You wanted to know," he said. "Now you do." "That's not how this works," I said, voice rising again. "You don't get to just, set this up like some kind of experiment? You think you're proving something?" "I'm not proving anything," he said. "I'm ending it." That landed differently. Not like a threat, like a decision already made. Rachel started walking toward us now, pushing through the edge of the crowd, her expression shifting from confusion into something sharper. "What did you do?" she said as she got closer, her voice tight. The man didn't turn around this time. "I didn't do anything you weren't already doing," he said. She stopped a few feet behind him. Her eyes flicked between him and me, then down the hallway, like she was suddenly aware of how exposed this moment was. "This wasn't supposed to happen like this," she said quietly. That was the first time I felt something other than shock cut through everything else. Not relief, not anger, something worse. Clarity. "You knew I was here," I said to her. She didn't answer immediately. That hesitation told me more than anything else had so far. "I didn't know you'd follow me," she said finally. The man let out a short breath that almost sounded like amusement, but wasn't quite. "You underestimate him," he said. Rachel's eyes snapped to him. "This is not what we agreed on," she said. Agreed on. That word did something inside my chest I couldn't fully process in real time. "You agreed on this?" I asked, looking at her now. She didn't answer me right away. Instead, she looked down briefly, then back up. "I didn't want it like this," she said. "I was going to tell you." There it was. The line people always use when everything has already crossed too far. The man finally turned slightly toward her now. "You weren't going to tell him," he said flatly. Rachel's expression tightened. "You don't know that."
"I do," he said, "because you've been saying that for months." The silence that followed wasn't quiet. It was heavy, like the entire room had compressed around the three of us. I felt my hands shake slightly now, not from fear anymore, but from the sheer weight of how fast the ground under me had shifted. "So, what is this?" I said again, slower. "You two just, decided I'd find out like this?" Rachel looked at me directly now, her face softened just slightly. "I didn't want to hurt you," she said. That sentence almost made me laugh, but nothing came out. "You're standing here with him," I said. "That's not avoiding hurting me. That's just choosing when." Her eyes dropped again. The man stepped slightly to the side now, putting a bit more space between them, not distancing himself from her, but from the confrontation. "I didn't bring you here to watch your marriage," he said to me. "I brought you here so it stops being whatever you've been pretending it is."
Pretending, I repeated. You've been living like nothing's wrong, he said. She's been living like she already left. That hit harder than I wanted it to. Rachel didn't deny it. That was the part I couldn't ignore anymore. Not the photos, not the messages, not even the physical reality of them together. It was the silence where a denial should have been. I looked at her again, really looked at her, and for the first time I stopped searching for the version of her I thought I knew. You were going to leave me, I said quietly. She closed her eyes for a second. I didn't know how, she admitted. The man exhaled slowly. That's not true, he said. You knew. You just didn't want to be the one to break it. Rachel turned toward him sharply. You said you'd handle it differently, she said. I did, he replied. I made sure he saw it. That sentence made everything go still inside me. Not because it was shocking, because it made sense in a way I didn't want it to. All the messages, the timing, the photos, the way he led me here instead of hiding from me. It wasn't exposure. It was execution. I looked at Rachel one more time. She wasn't crying. Neither was I. That absence said more than anything else. I took a step back, then another. No one stopped me. The man watched me leave like that was part of it too. Rachel didn't move. And as I turned away from the hallway, stepping back into the noise and warmth of a place that had nothing to do with me anymore, I finally understood the only thing that mattered now. This hadn't been a moment of discovery. It had been a moment of replacement. And I was already standing outside of it.